the moment the market is still very price driven, and that does challenge contractors that are trying to offer a higher end prospect. It means that there are many developers in this town who are really just looking for the bottom line price in every line of the estimate. The old Lang's business was here 40 years ago and did some projects that are still well known today, like Emirates Bank headquarters, Dubai Creek Golf Club, Clubhouse, some fairly iconic structures. When it became Laing O'Rourke, I think one of the major turning points was the joint venture that occurred with Aldar up in Al Raha Beach, where there was a load of work done there, Aldar HQ, Al Bandar, Al Zaina, but under an arrangement that then came to a conclusion in around 2011. And while it was a very amicable settlement with them, it was basically a view from Abu Dhabi developers that they didn't want to have joint venture arrangements with contractors. And so Laing O'Rourke ended up coming down from a very large business to a much smaller one. And for several years, I think, following that, it was really about trying to resolve the effects of winding the business down quite considerably. We like design and build. We like it for several reasons. Perhaps the most fundamental is that it tends to mean you've got shorter bid lists. There's a lot of, let's say, lower tier contractors that really can't do design and build. But the other reason is that it gives us the opportunity to design in a more constructible solution, to design in construction that can be done safely, can be done sustainably, and drive an agenda for off-site construction. And I'm sure you know Laing O'Rourke is seen as one of the world's leaders in design for manufacture and assembly. We fundamentally believe that anything that can be built in a factory should be built in a factory. We certainly pitch ourselves as a high-end contractor in terms of the quality that we'll deliver. It's very important to us that we deliver it safely, that we are at the top end of the range in terms of the standards that we require on worker welfare, the way we look after our people. I think also we are probably seen as one of the fastest contractors. So there are clients in this market perhaps that don't value timeliness of delivery, and there are others that do. We did the Hilton Garden Inn near Mall of the Emirates a couple of years ago. I mean, that was a full design and build contract, and 18 months after contract they were paying guests in the hotel. That's pretty much unheard of in Dubai. It can be done with the right methods of construction and the right cooperation between the client, contractor, designers, etc. So that's the sort of value proposition that we're looking at. And it does mean that we are looking at a pretty selective part of the market. I certainly think if you look in the UK, Laing O'Rourke is seen as the pioneer. But I do think that in many parts of the developed world now, there is a general move for the industry to go down that route. And as I say, it's about quality, it's about logistics, it's about, obviously in many parts of the world you've got much higher costs of labour that can, that labour can be expended far more efficiently by doing it in a factory or using robots and machines, etc., etc. So there's some different drivers. But when you see construction that's done in that manner, it just makes so much more sense. If you go back to 2016, the oil price was probably that much more significant. I think that in the intervening period there has been a whole raft of further economic issues on a global level and on a local level that probably mean that the recent increase in oil price isn't going to make such a massive difference going forward. I think you look at the market here at the moment, and I think we all know there are liquidity issues. There are concerns about what's going on with the economic growth and certainly what's going to happen post-Expo. And that's not about oil price, and oil price I don't think is going to fundamentally change that. For anywhere in the Middle East, it's good when the oil price goes up. You can't get away from that. But I think when you see everything else that's going on in the world and here, it's become a less significant issue. We just recently finished the Aloft Hotel at Dira City Centre. For me, fantastic product. I think if you've been there, You'll see very, very high quality. It's built on a very tight location, full design and build, heavily post-tension frame. We used as much off-site manufacture as we could. We did double bathroom pods that were assembled in a factory with pre-installed risers. All of the ceiling MEP was equipped there. And if you'd driven past it, you'd see we were dropping 10.5 ton modules that were fully equipped onto the floor, and then basically putting hollow planks on for the next floor. Very different way of doing things. All of the MEP was done off-site. So, you know, a great project, and I think the client and the operator are absolutely delighted with it. That's now open to the public. We've got a job that we've been working on for Siemens up at Jebel Ali for the last 18 months or so that carries on, the civil balance of plant work. And at the moment, our two sort of large projects are our Wasl Plaza at Expo 2020. We're also the contractor for the site-wide logistics at Expo 2020, but we've now got the Wasl Plaza, which is the bit right in the middle of the thematic district, a very challenging and demanding job. And then we're doing the Kasna data centers for Mubadala. That's 3 pods in Meydan in Dubai and 3 pods at Masdar City in Abu Dhabi. Again, full design and build data center, which data centers have got a very, very high MEP content, very high-end MEP content. So they present some unique challenges, and you know the way that the phasing of that job works out is just a little different. We've always valued key supply chain partners, and when you've got some that have got relatively unique skills, it just makes sense to put those kind of arrangements in place. You know, we do also see that there are further data center potentials here. We've recently finished another one for Equinix. We know that it's a market that makes sense for the UAE. There is a big desire to get the high-tech companies here, and that means you need data. So developing a really good supply chain, a team that we can work with. You know, we've worked very closely with a MEP designer called Black and White. It's been a very effective partnership. You know, we want to take that same team forward and offer that product to other customers in the future. At the moment, the market is still very price-driven, and that does challenge contractors that are trying to offer a higher-end prospect. It means that there are many developers in this town who are really just looking for the bottom line price in every line of the estimate. And you know, while there are some contractors that are happy to play in that game, to me, I'd question the sustainability of it. I think what we're also seeing here is that the terms and conditions just don't get any better. You know, very, very onerous contracts and very onerous payment terms, very heavy bonding requirements. And all of these things are things that are moving in a fundamentally different direction in the rest of the world. It's difficult to see the signs here that there's really a shift. The other sort of 2 key issues, one would be bonding. You know, pretty much every job here, you've got to stump up at least 20%, sometimes 25% of the contract value in bonds. They have all but vanished in other markets. You know, Laing O'Rourke in the UK has taken on £6 billion worth of work in the last 2 years, and there's not a single bond, not one. Which, you know, makes it quite challenging when I need to increase the bonding capacity here because of the way that this market is. And I think the third issue that's critical is the dispute resolution processes. What you see here is a lot of variation that comes because of poor engineering or late engineering or client change during the course of a job, and the accounts just get sort of trawled out for a very long period, so that you don't get the final account resolved at the time that the job completes. You know, that drifts into the sort of defects period, and there's no real mechanism to resolve that quickly. Whereas again, what we're seeing around the rest of the world is these rapid dispute resolution processes that call that during the course of a job. And it means that from a contractor's standpoint, you're not ending up doing a job with, you know, vast chunks of your cash and your bonds locked up at the end of it. Singapore has a good process. I think the process that's used in Australia is pretty effective in the States. In the UK, the process that's been used on the large projects over there is very effective, very cost effective. Certainly like to see some of that getting incorporated here, but at the moment it's far from the case. I think there's a lot of discussion going on, and obviously there are models being used elsewhere in the world that can be incorporated here. But you know, you just sort of sense that there's a reluctance to take that on, and perhaps given that it's a very price-driven market, given what I said about liquidity shortages, it makes it very difficult for the clients to take that jump. And you know, despite encouragement from people like us, I just don't see it happening at the moment. We had a bit of a hole in our books last year because a couple of jobs that we had as PCSAs just evaporated. So we're actually seeing quite a big jump in our workload this year, and have been recruiting over the last few months. We're probably at the point now where we've got what we need, except for a slight augmentation of the MEP resource when we move into that phase on both Wasl and on Kasna. Going forward from there, it will depend upon what other projects we secure.